Everyone. Good morning. I'm just going to wait for you guys to tune in. Come on in. I didn't think I was going to be able to make live today, but I literally dashed out of USCIS and made it just on time for live. So, welcome. We had a very good interview at USCIS this morning with my client and his kids. Okay. Let me put my phone number in here. Good morning. If this is your first time tuning in, welcome. Good morning. Let me put my phone number and then we can jump right into questions. And if it's your first time, definitely let me know where you are tuning in from. Just give me a second, guys. I'm putting in my phone number here. 37. Good morning, good vibes. Welcome. Melanie from Fairfax, Virginia. Welcome. Good morning. I used to live in Virginia as well when I went to law school in Washington, D.C. Dorcas in Atlanta. Hey. Grace from Brooklyn, New York. Welcome. I also used to live in Brooklyn. New York is the first, is where I've lived, the longest before, adulthood. Someone is asking, okay, so let me introduce myself first before I get into questions. So my name is Aisha Chidole. For those of you who don't know me or first timers, I'm an immigration attorney here in Atlanta, Georgia, but I represent clients in all 50 states, so your location really doesn't matter. We take cases in every state. If you want to schedule a consultation with our law firm, our phone number is 678-325-1037 or 678-233-2170. You can also send a WhatsApp. We don't take calls on that number, but you can text a WhatsApp, 404-333-8751. Or you could book yourself online on our website, which is chidolewaylaw.com/booking. So if you want to book a consult, you can just book it directly yourself. Cases we handle, all family-based immigration, and the humanitarian cases we handle are VAWA cases, trafficking cases, U visas, SIJS, and what else do we handle? We handle removals and detention if you or your loved one has been detained. All right, let's jump right into it. Angela says, good morning from New York. Love the nude lipstick. You're the second person telling me that today. Thank you so much. I used to have a show on my live. This was like years ago, like in 2016 when I first started my law firm called Lipsticks and Trademarks, because I also used to do trademarks. Still do a little bit of it, but I love lipstick, so I change my lipstick all the time, and people are always like, which one is this or what is this? So thank you, I appreciate that. Okay, let's see. This question is, how do I schedule biometrics for VAWA at the U.S. Consulate in Canada? I got an overseas notice, but there's no USCIS in Canada. Honestly, this is an error that we're seeing. We actually do have some VAWA clients outside of the United States, and we have had to reach out to USCIS saying that they don't live in the United States, so you shouldn't be scheduling them for biometrics because they're already going to do their police clearance before their interview, to come here. So that is an error that we're seeing. So you might want to just notify USCIS that you do not live in the United States. Y'all, I can't tell you the amount of errors we see on a daily basis. There used to be a time where it would be shocking to see this kinds of errors. I might have an RFE where it says, oh, you submitted your file in 2016, but the person submitted their file in 2026. So I don't know. I don't know if this is because of the age of AI, maybe people are just copy pasting stuff or they're not reviewing this stuff. But the kind of errors that I'm seeing coming from letters from USCIS these days, it's rather interesting. Anywho, Let's jump right into questions. Um, what type of folder should I buy to go to the interview? I'm not sure I understand that question. You don't need a folder to go to the interview. If you have a lot of documents, just as long as you have something that can fit all the documents you have. Like, for some people, that could just be like an 8 by 11 envelope. For some people, it's one of those envelopes that has, I don't know if to call it envelope or binders, that have different like layers where they can kind of organize the different documents they bring. So it just depends. For me, when I attend interviews for my clients, I personally bring my client stuff, like everything we submitted, and I already have those tabbed out. So sometimes, like my interview this morning, the officer needed was looking for the client had been in removal proceedings, which was terminated. So, while they're wasting time, I already had it tabbed and I gave it to the officer. So, wherever you can tab things that that the officer might be looking for, you just want to put a tab there so it's easy for you to just, hand it over to the officer. Okay. Girl, JJ says, good morning and best attorney I know so far. Thank you so much. Demar says, best ever. Thank you for all you do. Thank you, guys. Nashia from YouTube, big up lawyer that represents her clients. Great morning to you all. Thank you. All right. Faith from Washington, Seattle on Facebook. Good morning. Macedonis, good morning. Okay. Hey, beautiful, my VAWA queen. Any updates on VAWA? There are no updates. I'm not sure what update you are asking for. So is there something specific that you would like to know? You can ask it and I'll answer. Okay. So someone says, so now that the pause has been lifted, what happens? I filed for my son in May of 2025, and I was waiting on the approval from USCIS. Do you think things will move quickly for my son in Jamaica? He's 10 years old. I can tell you that there's going to be a backlog. Like, I think that it's going to be a backlog because that's what always happens when you hold, and then all of a sudden, all those people that were initially went through their interview, they have to now process those cases. And then after processing those cases, then they have to now start scheduling people who, like you, are still in the process. So for you, you still have some ways to go because they first of all have to approve the I-130. That I-130 is still staying within the normal timeline. After the I-130 is approved, then you go to the National Visa Center, enter the information for his DS-260 application, your own financial affidavit of support, and whatever is needed. And once that's documentary qualified, then they will schedule for the interview. So the goal is, because if you submitted May 2025, I don't know if you're a U.S. citizen or not. If you're a U.S. citizen, this would be a time that I'll do an inquiry just to check since we're in August. So you have about 15 months that's been pending. So I will do an inquiry just to check with them, especially now that that's open. And you guys know that anytime the courts disagree with the current administration, that they always appeal it until the point it gets to the Supreme Court. So while this is a win for the country, the 75 countries that had a pause, this is also a time to really accelerate your process. If you had an interview and you're part of the 75 country pause, not part of the ban, you can be part of the ban. I'm talking of the only limitation they had was that you were part of the 75 country pause. This is a time to be reaching out to the consulate for a status update, reaching out to the consulate to ask them if there's anything else they need to make a decision on you. Sometimes that's what it takes, right? Recently, I've been getting these emails from USCIS saying it's not necessary to send us multiple emails. We got your first email, but I'm sorry, like if you got my first email, then reply or do what it is that I asked you to do. I'm trying not to be a nuisance, but at the same time, we have to have some sort of zealous advocacy, like what's going on. So just reach out and try to get those done, which is what we told you guys, all of these things will not, it will never be this way forever. That's why when you are consular processing, whether you are in the banned country, whether you put your stuff in, because those are the first people that they're going to review, once they start adjudicating or processing it like they did for the 75 countries. Okay. All right, let me see what else. And I got to get off early today. Let's see. My husband was denied in February of 2026 under the 221G, and the consular officer said otherwise. There was no issue with his file. With the 705 country visa pause lifted, what should we do to follow up? So it's exactly what I just told you to do. Send that email to the consulate. Send it to them, letting them know that make sure in the email that you're providing your husband's full name, date of birth, alien number, basically whatever it is, to make it easy for them to find this case, and letting them know this is a date that his interview was had. This is a not denial that was received. The pause has been lifted. I would go as far as adding the judge's order, like was lifted. What's the status? What can we expect next? Just so that you can hopefully get something from them. Is it okay to make a photo collage of visits and upload those as additional evidence? When you say of visits, I don't know what kind of case you're referring to, but photo collages that demonstrate good faith evidence of relationship, if that's what you're asking, are okay. When you submit photos, you want to make sure that your photos are captioned, okay? Meaning you want to give context, because if you send a photo with like 4 people, like that person doesn't know what that is. So you want to write, this is a picture we took, at the Washington Monument in June of 2023. And on the left is Aisha, and the right is, Chinedu, or whatever it is, whoever it is. So you want to give captions to those pictures and really all your evidence. I think that when you submit applications and you make it simple and easy for officers to review them and connect all the dots, it makes it that much easier for you guys. Oh my gosh, I'm looking at my gray hairs and I'm just realizing, like, I have so much gray hairs this year. Like, immigration is stressing me out so much that I'm getting so much gray hairs. But anywho, okay. What are the requirements for N400 under the 3-year rule? Okay, this is a very good question. In order for you to file an N400, which is an application for naturalization into a U.S. citizen in under 3 years, you have to, 1, show that you are still in a good faith marriage, and that you and your spouse, hear me and hear me clearly, that you and your spouse still live together. Your spouse cannot live in South Carolina and you live in New York to file a 3-year requirement. You must be, there's no exemption. There's no, well, I had to move there because of X work. So even if the reason makes sense why you're not living in the same place, because that continuous cohabitation for 3 years is required, for N400's sake, you must be living in the same household. If you're not living in the same household, then you might as well wait till you're 5 years to do it. The second requirement is, of course, you want to make sure that you have been in the United States for at least, or at minimum, slightly more than half of that 3-year timeline. You want to make sure that you have filed and paid all outstanding taxes. You want to make sure that if you have any children who do not live with you and are under the age of 18, that you have child support somehow taken care of. If you owe back child support, you're not going to get approved, and possibly you could even be arrested. So you want to make sure you pay child support before you file for citizenship. If you are one of those people on this call right now, of live right now, because I've spoken to people where they've not paid child support and they're like, well, can I just stop paying it now? I'm like, granted, you can pay it now, but that back child support, the one that you didn't pay before, you must work out a way to pay that before you put in your naturalization application. And then, of course, the last thing is no crimes of moral turpitude, no false claim to citizenship, or whatever it is. If you're a guy, you have to have registered for selective service. If you're between the ages of 18 to 26 at the time, you got your green card. If you didn't register and you're over 30, there's usually an exemption, so we would want to submit the exemption there. So that's basically what the requirements are, all right? If I'm in Florida and a Haitian this year makes me 5 years, can I apply for my citizenship? How long does it take? I want to assume that you're saying that you've been a green card holder for 5 years. From a timeline perspective, you can apply for citizenship at the 5-year mark for the general requirement. That said, I just listed all the other things that you have to meet. As long as you meet all those other things, then you can file. Okay. I submitted a request for evidence for VAWA that was submitted in 2022, 8 months now and nothing. What is the wait time like? The wait time is long. VAWA cases are taking minimum 4 years unless you are approved for an expedite, because I've talked about this and I talk about this every day, because they are interviewing VAWA cases. So they're just taking longer. There's a lot of scrutiny, on VAWA cases because some people are filing fraudulent VAWA applications or stating that they've been abused or not, or lawyers or notaries or consultants that are doing unscrupulous stuff. So as such, they are requiring interviews to make sure that you have a genuine claim, and that truly you've experienced this with your spouse. And because of that, it takes time. So 8 months really is not a long time for that case time. My children were denied in March. They are in Nigeria, but I don't know what to do next. Well, Elijah, I don't know the reason why your children were denied, but I'm just assuming that you're asking me because they're subject to the pause and the ban. So for a country like Nigeria, because they're subject to the pause and the ban, even though the public charge pause has been lifted, the partial ban has not been lifted from Nigeria. So because the partial ban has not been lifted from Nigeria, they still cannot approve that until the partial ban is lifted, unfortunately. So you just kind of have to wait. If they already, if that's the basis, if there's another basis, then I'm happy to have a consultation with you to know what the basis is. Okay. Alika Parchman on YouTube says, should we file right away if the visa bulletin date is available, or just wait to file? I would need more context. It would depend on what your case is, what exactly you're talking about. So once I know that, then I can let you know. But for instance, if you have a VAWA application, for example, and you're married to a green card holder, not a US citizen, but a green card holder, right now, because the visa bulletin is current, you can do a concurrent filing with your VAWA and your I-485. Now, turn that around, and if you have an I-130, you're filing based on marriage, not based on abuse. If you're filing based on abuse and you're married, not abuse, if you're filing based on marriage to a green card holder, the only time when the visa bulletin is current that you can do a concurrent filing is when you have never violated your immigrant status, including overstaying or working under the table. Okay, if you've not overstayed before, you've not worked under the table before, then you can do a concurrent file. If you have any of those, you got to wait for your spouse to be a U.S. citizen. So that's why I said it depends on context. Okay. So Emma says, you're so appreciated. Thank you. We're 2.5 years into our I-130. I'm only allowed to be in the USA max 182 days. It's taken a long time. However, we'll be very patient. Yes, it is very frustrating. And, I would say, I don't know if your spouse is a U.S. citizen or not. I don't know what country you are from or not, but one of the things that I would suggest, 2.5 years, if you're married to a U.S. citizen, is a really long time for them not to have adjudicated the I-130. I would be seeking congressional assistance if I was you at this point. And then the other thing we'd want to check or consider is, are you from a country that has a pause or a ban? Because then, that's one hurdle to get through the I-130 and then the documentary qualified. So you're Canadian. So there's absolutely no reason for your stuff to be pending, for that long. Definitely get Congress involved if you've not already reached out to USCIS to find out why it's taken too long. That's a really long time. Okay. Javante says, what should we expect now since the pause has been lifted? When I get off this live, go back and rewatch the beginning. I talked about that already. Gabby says, how can I make an appointment with you, please? You can call our office, 678-325-1037. You can ask to speak with me. Specifically, we also have very capable attorneys here that handle consultations. It really doesn't matter who you consult with. I touch every single case that comes to this office. So, I will still be the final reviewer of your case and reviser of your case. So whoever you consult with doesn't really matter. But if you want to specifically speak to me, when you do call, you can let our client care team know that you want to schedule me. Sometimes it might mean that you might be scheduled further out, but it's what it is. Okay. Okay, I'm going to take one more question because I got to jump off. How long are I-485s taken to be adjudicated for applications submitted in 2025 based on marriage to a U.S. citizen? 6 to 13 months is what we're seeing. If you submitted your file anytime this year in 2026, those ones are taking like 3 to 6 months. 3 to 6 months. That's what we're seeing. 3 to 6 months. The one that I went to today, the marriage case I went to today, this couple, they submitted theirs in November of 2024. So theirs took a little longer. But anyone that came after, in 2025, I would say 6 to 13 months, 2026, 3 to 6 months. So that's what we're seeing. All right, guys, I hope you guys have an amazing day. I have to jump off, but I will talk to you guys later. Bye.